Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we got a this or that video. Now this is going to be a good one, so make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy, go ahead and smash the like button. That would be great. So today's video is about shotguns. Now we have two types of shotguns here, two of the most common shotguns you can find. You have the really common 12 gauge, really common gun, super reliable, and you have the 20 gauge. Now, we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna say there are a ton of different types of actions you can use for these guns. For instance, this 12 gauge I have is just a single shot, which means it just has one barrel and it's a break action, so it breaks at the hinge. And then the 20 gauge is a pump action. There's all types of actions you can use, guys. There is pump, hinge, semi-auto. There's some bolt action, and there might even be some lever actions. I'm not really sure, but there is a lot. But I'm just going to go over logistics with you guys about these two guns. So we're going to go ahead and start off with this 12 gauge. This was actually given to me by my great-grandpa on my 13th birthday. It is a 1912 N.R. Davis & Sons out of Norwich, Connecticut, USA. So this gun is super old. This thing's over 100 years old. This thing's like 109 years old, roughly. 109-year-old shotgun. Now this shotgun cannot really be fired much anymore due to some problems just from aging. For instance, you can see right here on the stock, you can see it's separating, and also on the bottom, that metal right there is just completely cracked out. But like I said, guys, hinge action, you load your shell in, load it, cock your hammer back, and you pull the trigger. You, of course, don't open the bolt when you shoot, but I just did it for the demonstration for safety. Now this is a super long gun. Also, it is slightly heavy because the whole thing's steel. But you can see just a single action, well, hinge action, single barrel. You can have over unders, which is this barrel with a barrel on top of it, or you could get the side by side, which is two barrels right next to each other. Now, on to the second gun. This is a 20 gauge Mossberg, chambered for 2 3/4 inch to 3 inch shells. It is a Mossberg Model 510. Now I do have a shorter barrel on here. If you compare the 20 gauge barrel to the 12 gauge, the triggers are perfectly lined up. You can see that the 12 gauge is significantly longer, around 4 inches longer. This barrel right here is really good for turkey hunting, mainly because you're in close, in brush, and it's hard to move a big, long barrel like this 12 gauge around branches and bushes. Now, the 20 gauge. This is one of my more common guns that I use. I got this around when I was 10. It is a super reliable shotgun. I have a slug barrel for it, which is around the length of the 12 gauge barrel that you can shoot rifled slugs out of, but it is just a short, really good gun. And if you guys look closely around the stock area, when I'm not putting my finger on the trigger, which is gun safety rule, when you have it closed, I usually put my finger right here, and so you guys can see the wear. You can kind of see the paint coming off right around here. And then on this side, you can see, especially down here, it's like turning whitish. That's just from being worn, from being used. Now, we're going to get into logistics. Now, there is a bunch of different styles of shells you can use. There's different brands. But just for reference, here is a 20 gauge shotgun shell. And if I can get these boxes open. here is a 12 gauge shell. Now, as you guys can see, here's the 20 gauge, here's the 12 gauge. They're the same height, but their diameters are much different. They work the same exact way. You load them into the shotgun, and then when you pull the trigger, it hits that primer, which is that brass right there in the middle. It'll hit that, and it'll cause a little spark in the back, igniting the powder. And there's a wad right here with all the shot sitting in there, and it'll launch it out the end of the barrel. Now, you can do a bunch of different shells. For instance, I have right here on hand some Winchester Longbeard XR Locked and Lethal. This is a 3-inch shell. For reference, here's a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch shell. Here's a 3-inch shell. This turkey load does much better against turkeys than this. I mean, because the longer shell, the more shot it has. Now, a lot of people like to use shotguns for squirrels because, first of all, they're really common. Second of all, you have more chances of hitting a squirrel. I'm just gonna bring these two shells up. Now, for squirrels, 12 gauge really isn't that necessary for squirrels, so you're better off using a 410 or a 20 gauge. Now, here's a 20 gauge. In this is full of teeny tiny BBs, and those are what you can hit a squirrel with. There is probably close to about 75 to 100 tiny BBs in this. Now, another common round is the 22 rifle, 22 long rifle. For reference, here's a 20 gauge shell. Here's a 22 long rifle. Significantly smaller diameter, and the 22 is around the same size of the primer, as you guys can see there. The only way you have to hit a squirrel is with this teeny tiny bullet. That's a small bullet and not very many chances to hit the squirrel. These are quieter for squirrels, but they're not as practical as a shotgun. Also, guys, I mentioned earlier that you can use a 20 or 410 for squirrel. Just for reference, here's a 20, here's a 410. Now, the 410 is expanded, the end, because it's been shot, but they are the same height. The diameters are just very different. You guys might be thinking, well, that looks really small, like a 22. Here's a 410, here's a 22. Still significantly bigger. Now, the whole point of this video, 20 gauge versus 12 gauge. Now, I'm not comparing these two guns right here on the table specifically because they're different actions, much different years. Like I said, this is only an 11-year-old gun. This is a 109-year-old gun. So they're not going to perform the same. Now, if you're going out for small game like squirrels, squirrels, rabbits, pheasants, quail, stuff like that, you probably would go with the 20 gauge. Also, if you're going deer hunting with a slug gun, a 12 gauge with a slug barrel kicks really bad. The 20 gauge kicks bad with a slug in general, but not nearly as bad as a 12 gauge, so you're probably going to go with your 20 gauge on that. Now, if you're going for stuff like turkeys, also pheasants are really, in my opinion, kind of hard to kill. If you're going for like pheasants, turkey, a lot of bigger animals, bigger waterfowl and stuff, this is also good for like longer range ducks. You want to go with your 12 gauge. I would pick a 12 gauge for that situation almost all the time. Now, 12 gauge ammo is around the same price as 20 gauge, but the 12 gauge is a tiny bit more. But on another hand, you also have self-defense purposes. Shotguns in general are great self-defense guns. They're super calm, super easy to get bullets, except for right now because it's 2021. And literally, guys, I went online to try to find a 22 rifle, just a simple 22 rifle yesterday, just to see if I could find one for really cheap. I searched on 3 websites through 500 different guns, and all of them were out of stock. And also, bullets and shells in general are really hard to find. But if you're going for a good self-defense gun, you have the 12 gauge and the 20 gauge. Both are really good. If you're talking self-defense for a bear, I would definitely go with a 12 gauge. 12 gauge is gonna have more knockdown power, and if you're going up against a bear, I would be using some big 3-inch turkey load or 3.5-inch turkey loads. But if it's just for home defense, protecting the family, for something like an intruder or something such as a black bear, you're not gonna need as much knockdown. A 20 gauge works great for that reason. Now, that being said, do not use this video for pretty much anything except for just trying to compare these guns for hunting purposes only. That is the only reason I was making this video, because shotguns in good are great, but they can be expensive. I was looking in a magazine for over-under shotguns. You're looking at around $2 grand for a shotgun. That being said, pump shotguns on the other hand, also semi-autos, are gonna be significantly less. Don't ask me why. For some reason, I think that the hinge actions would be cheaper, but apparently they're not. Well guys, that is gonna wrap it up for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you wanna see more gun videos, please comment below guns. Well, comment below gun videos. And I will see you guys next time.